Dating over 50. Is it really worth the effort?
I think it might be.
Mhm.
Hey, welcome to No Two Gays About It, the show for the over 50 gay male, all about everything that's important to those of us over 50 gay men, and hosted by, yep, two guys who are gay and over 50. Hi, I'm Tom Burke.
And I'm Michael Foley.
And today we are going to take on dating after 50. In the
Woo!
Woohoo is right. The pros, the cons, and how to actually make it work for you if that's what you're looking for.
Yeah, but before we get started with this riveting conversation, all of you guys who are watching us on YouTube, don't forget to click like and subscribe and ring that little bell if you want to get a notification when a new video drops.
Indeed. All right, Michael. Let's start talking about dating now. As everybody knows who watches or listens to our show, I am a married guy. I am not out there dating. However, last
What?
night,
Wait, what? You're not?
right? Although last night my husband and I did go out on a date. We went out to dinner and then walked around town. Just being together, being that happy couple that we are. So I don't know that much about dating. However, because I knew we were going to talk about dating, I made a lot of phone calls to anybody that I knew that was single. I talked to guys in Chicago, in New York, Los Angeles, and of course here in Palm Springs. So I am ready. But I have a question for you, Michael, that really comes to the forefront when I think about gay men dating.
Oh, I can't wait. Go ahead.
What's the difference between hooking up and dating?
Um, Huge difference. Hooking
Okay.
up is just basically, you have one focus, and that focus is usually sexual. And dating, you go out, you go to dinner, you meet for coffee, go for a hike, and you have conversation about the individual, their life, your life. You get to know each other. It's a different dynamic.
And then you have sex.
No,
Okay.
I mean, sometimes yes, but if it depends on the vibe. There have been dates where it's like, oh, let's do this again, and we do it again, and then there are dates where you just wind up at somebody's house and things happen, and sex happens sort of naturally, and that's a nice thing as well. So there are no rules when it comes to dating. It's an individual choice, and it's an individual experience with the person who you're with. So a lot goes on.
So for you, why do you date? Why are you going into dating?
Well, I do hookups and I do dating. So but I like to date because I like companionship. This is me. I don't need it, but I realize that for me, it's a good thing to add to my life. It gets me out of my shell. It gets me to meet new people, and it has nothing to do with being lonely or feeling alone. It's just I like human contact. I like meeting new people. I like new experiences because I'm very happy alone. But and a lot of us guys over 50 are. But there is that part of us that sometimes we forget about that does crave other human companionship, and that's why I date. It's a great experience.
Well, is there an end goal? Like, do you want to find someone that you can date a lot? Like multiple dates? Are you in it to find a relationship, or are you in it to, you know, get to the end? Basically the hookup, but
No,
get
no, because again, hookups are different. Hookups are kind of easy, and a lot of gay men realize that it's the sex is the easy part. The hooking up is the easy part. Um, but dating takes work. There is no end goal for me when I go out on a date. I don't put expectations on it. Like I said, I'm happy alone. Um, but knowing myself, sometimes I'm a little too happy alone and sort of retreat into myself because it's
right.
easier. Let's be real. This is something married guys may not get if you've been married for a long time. When you date, you sort of extend your heart in some ways, and especially if you date, you know, for a while, or if you have a relationship that lasts a year or two, your heart sort of lives outside of you.
Right.
And I think a lot of us single guys have built up calluses, and it gets harder as we get older. So I like to push myself to have that experience, regardless of what comes of it. Um, I had a very intense dating experience the end of spring, beginning of summer this year, and it reminded me of a lot of things that I had closed myself off to, and you know, it was really hard, but it wound up being such a great thing on so many different levels that, like I said, it reminded me of a lot of stuff that I had just sort of shut a door on. So, yeah,
Well, okay, but if it was so great, why are you not dating this person anymore?
different parts of the world. He lives in Australia
Okay.
and travels a lot. So the reality of developing anything further, I think, was at the forefront when we started dating. Um, yeah, and long distance relationships really don't work. Um, in my past experiences, they've been really challenging, and
Yeah.
it's hard enough dating somebody living in the same city when you're apart, and then you live in this fantasy world. Like when you see each other, everything's great and it's wonderful, and then you separate, and you don't know each other in everyday real life.
Right. All right. Enough of you. Let's get back to everybody out there. How actually do gay men over 50 date? How do you find your dates? I know hookups you're on those apps, right? So how are you finding dates out there in the single world?
But there are a lot of dating apps as well. You don't have to go to a Grinder or a Scruff to. Although, believe it or not, I've gotten quite a few dates off of Grinder and Scruff, because you read somebody's profile and you see what they're interested in, and a lot of people have dating as one of their prerequisites.
Yeah.
Um, and those are the folks that I'll talk to. And I've had dates from those apps. So, you can't wipe out an entire idea or concept because you're limiting yourself. But again, there's dating apps like Hinge. We had this guy who I had mentioned Hinge in a previous show, and he sent us a message and was like, "That was the best recommendation that I've heard in a long time. I joined it. I met somebody, and they've been dating for months now, which is kind of awesome. So
Yeah.
don't close yourself off and be so myopic that you eliminate the apps altogether.
Well,
Because
well.
we
One
have
of the guys I spoke with, this was a quote from him. The best way to meet a guy to date is through friends. Keep off the hookup sites. Keep keep off the apps. Those guys only want a lot of random sex. No matter what they say, find a guy who doesn't use them.
See, and again, there's something to me that's myopic, because I'm on those apps and that's not all I'm looking for. So, granted, you may have to go through 100 guys before you find one who wants to go out on a date, but you can't, cut off your nose to spite your face and go, I'm not
Well,
going to use them because
well,
they're
you can't. That it doesn't work for you.
right.
But somebody else, this guy, it doesn't work for him and he doesn't want to be on those hookup apps looking for dates. So you can't say that about everybody.
I'm
Everybody
not
has
saying it about everybody. I said that comment you read was a little myopic because, again,
to
there are
you.
people.
It was myopic to you, but not to him. To him,
If,
that
if you're if you're limiting your access to individuals,
right.
regardless of the forum, you know, to me, he's the one who might lose out, but that's just me. Because
Exactly.
again,
That
you're
is just
limiting you're
you.
limiting the arena that you get to go into and maybe meet somebody. So
Right.
if
But
that's how he chooses to operate, awesome. Don't
exactly.
use the apps. But I'm also going to say this because you brought up meet through friends.
Yeah.
Um, a lot of times friends forget about their single friends. Like, you know, we've been friends for a long time. You've never introduced me to a single friend of yours, ever. So, you're sort of out of sight, out of mind. Um, so it would be awesome if, I had friends who were like, oh, I have somebody that you might want to meet. But that doesn't really happen, I think, in today's world, or at least it doesn't for me.
Again, it doesn't happen for you, but these guys that I've been speaking to, that's where they're meeting people that they want to date. They don't
So
want to date
has
people
this
off
guy
the bat.
has this guy met friends? Like, has this guy met dates through friends? Did he go on to elaborate and what his experience was or has been?
Yes,
Ooh, tell me.
has. Well, this guy is now living with a guy who he met through friends. It was 2 years ago. But again, he had a lot of really bad experiences on the apps. So, yes, it might work for you, but he's coming up against guys who are, as he said, they're really just there looking for this one thing.
And again, like I said, maybe 1 out of 100 is somebody who actually is willing to date. But
Right. And he doesn't want to, this guy
yeah,
did not want to go through 100
oh my God, and I get that.
fake
I get it
days.
because it's exhausting. It is
Yeah.
exhausting. Yeah, I totally get that. But again,
Okay.
I'm not gonna, I personally am not gonna give up a particular arena that I might meet somebody in to and just
Okay.
go, everybody's the same, because then you're pigeonholing.
Okay. Great.
You know?
All right. So, what about the actual date? Where do guys over 50 go on dates? Like I said, my husband and I went to dinner last night. Where do you guys go out on like that first initial date?
It depends on the vibe you have with the person. A lot of times, if you meet online, I prefer a coffee date, something that where the time can be limited if it need be. Um, and then if I meet somebody in person, like let's say one of the places here I go in Palm Springs is a venue that focuses on game nights and trivia and things like that. So if you meet somebody in that environment and you click, it's like, oh, let's do dinner, let's get together for lunch, let's, I for me there I don't limit myself, but I definitely will not do dinner with somebody who I haven't met because that could be an hour and a half or 2 hours of hell.
Yeah, this is another guy, not that one we were just talking about, a quote that he gave me about where to go on dates. And he said, never meet at a bar unless you like someone looking over your shoulder the whole time, which is something we talked about another time
Yeah,
where,
I agree wholeheartedly with that. Bars are not a good environment to go out on a
right.
first date.
But he did say coffee dates are nice. You want to go somewhere that is quiet where you can talk. Otherwise, what's the point?
Yeah.
Dinner dates are best, but better for a second date.
Ding ding.
Yeah.
So, yep, there you go. Because again, I used to do this when I was younger. You'd set up a date and go out to dinner, and you realize you have nothing in common, or it's oil and water, and it creates a more challenging environment when you have to sit through dinner.
Right.
So I agree wholeheartedly with this guy in bars. Not so good because, like he said, noisy, right?
Right.
Um, I don't like to introduce liquor into a first date because it does change some people's behavior. So I sort of like to catch it for what it is, which
Right.
is why coffee's a safe bet.
Okay, here's a question that I really don't know the answer to because I have not been on dates for a long time. Who pays?
On a first date,
Yeah.
Dutch is a good way to go. And then you just feel the vibe. I have no problem extending, like, oh, let me get this.
Right.
But if you go out on a second and a third and a fourth, and you're the only one who's reaching for the check, then
There's
there's
an
an issue with
issue.
that. Yeah.
Yeah.
You know,
Um, there used to be the rule like if you ask, you pay. I would imagine that's no longer, that was the dark ages when I was
yeah.
dating. So, no, that's not an issue there.
I don't think so. I never operated on that way anyway because I don't like to be beholden. That's just me. Like, let's say you're going to go to dinner and a movie. You know, I'll catch the movie or I'll buy dinner. You get the movie, something like that,
Yeah.
where
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
equitable and you don't feel like you owe the person. And that's another sort of Stone Age thought process. It's like,
Right.
I don't want to owe anybody anything. So just because you bought me dinner, you know, uh, what is that expression? Don't buy the cow if you could get the
Oh,
milk for free.
yeah.
So I don't like to be beholden to people. It just makes me uncomfortable. So I always like
Got
to
it.
pay my own way or split a check. It's no biggie.
So, while we're on that
How
subject
did
of
you
giving,
operate back in the day? Were you Because again, I've always been this way where it's like, I want a split. I want a fair, equal, sort of equitable system on it, especially when you're getting to know somebody. How did you guys do it?
My husband and I are guys that I was dating.
Either or?
Yeah. Um, yeah, I don't, I,
Is it hard to remember? It's
um,
been so long,
let's
Grandpa.
just say I didn't pay very often.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did you feel beholden then? Like,
God, no.
okay, all right.
Nobody
Well,
got a
you
piece
know
of
what?
this.
Good on you. I wish I had that ability, but I don't.
All right, let's get back to, normal people, because God knows I am not.
And that's the thing about this conversation. Dating is so personal, and you got
Right?
to find what works for you and makes you feel comfortable, you know?
Exactly. There is a lot of negativity around dating. We are getting a lot of
Yeah.
comments from the guys who are watching and listening to us, a lot of bitterness out there about this
Yeah.
dating out there. There have to be positives about dating, right?
Yeah. And
So,
I pointed this out earlier that it does get harder as you get older because you build up a callus.
yeah,
And, you extend your heart or you open yourself up and then somebody doesn't call or things just don't work out. So what is our tendency as human beings is to withdraw, right? Um, and again, that's what was so awesome about this dating relationship I had at the end of spring, where I didn't really realize how closed off I was on a lot of levels. So it sort of shook me into, oh my God, I got to get out of that
right.
because we are human beings. We crave intimacy. We crave companionship. Just holding somebody in bed, it doesn't even have to be sexual, could be the biggest tie ever. But I do understand that closing yourself off and going, I don't need anybody. Mind you, I don't need anybody either. But it reminded me that it would be nice to want somebody. You know what I mean?
Yes. So is that one of the positives of dating, to have those feelings once again of like, wow.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
To allow yourself to be vulnerable and to allow yourself to be in a space where you're in a moment, and whatever happens beyond that moment, don't worry about, because it's going to take care of itself regardless, one way or the other. You don't have to go out on a date and in your mind. Okay, my life is the Big Bang Theory. And there was one of the characters on the show, Raj, who he would go out on a first date and all of a sudden he's envisioning himself being married and
Right.
with children on the first date. And we can't do that. We have to live in the moment, especially as we get older. I think it makes it easier, because when we were younger, we had this romanticized idea of dating and what it should be, that Disney idea kind of thing. But we're older and we're wiser. And, hopefully if we open ourselves up, we could experience things on a different level now.
Okay, you still haven't told me really anything positive about dating.
I'm going to go back to the companionship.
Okay, that's one. What else?
Being intimate with somebody.
Well,
trusting,
being,
because that's one that gets really hard.
but does that happen on a first or second date?
No, that's something
right?
that grows. But again, what was so bizarre about this dating relationship was that there was a spark immediately. It was one of those rare moments where things just clicked. And it was nice to feel that. And it was just, you open yourself up and you allow yourself to be in the moment and let it go wherever it goes.
But again, there are so many guys who have given up on dating. You even asked the question when we first started, is it worth it? There has to be something worth it that first date for you to want to move forward, to want to date, besides companionship. What's another positive thing about dating?
Again, I think being able to trust somebody is...
But you're saying that that's not going to happen on the first date.
It's not going to happen on a first date.
So then what's propelling you?
If you're not dating, you don't allow for the possibility for something else to happen. So if you close yourself off to dating, you're never going to get to that moment, possibly. And you may never get to it even if you're dating, like with me. You got to kiss a lot of frogs. And
I don't know about that. Do you have to kiss them? Can't you just go to the date?
okay, you do understand that that was a metaphor. It
Yeah.
wasn't I'm not going to run around town kissing everybody. But
It's not what you've said to us before, though.
fuck you. Excuse me.
Yeah.
So again, people could be more than one thing, and we could allow ourselves to be, the biggest hoochie on the planet, but still want intimacy. Those two things can exist in the same universe, right? Um, and again, it doesn't happen on a first date, but if you cut yourself off from a first date,
Got it.
you never know what's going to happen. So for me, and again, I was putting myself out there, but I also realized how much I had closed off.
Okay, so that dating experience ended because he went back to Australia. Did that spur you on to continue dating, to do more, to try to find the next guy who you would have that spark with?
It took me by surprise, so there was a lot of I had to process, but it did open my mind to, oh, I was really closed off in a lot of ways. And now I'm going to allow for that possibility. I don't run out looking for it. If it happens
Right.
organically, then that's awesome. Because again, I don't need somebody. I'm happy alone, because as we get older, we do get set in our ways. I think once you're over 40, regardless of married, single, whatever, you're definitely set in your ways. And, it's harder to allow somebody in.
Okay, I got a great quote from another guy that I spoke with saying that exact same thing. Because the majority of the single guys are single for a reason. Oh, I asked, why is it so difficult to what date? Because the majority of single guys are single for a reason. They're set in their ways. They only want things their way. And most often, they just want to get laid. It's not about making a connection, which takes time. They just want to have sex and move on to the next person.
And you know what? If that's somebody's agenda and they're upfront about it, more power to you. But
yeah, but if you're looking for dates, I mean, if they say that to you, then you wouldn't go on the date with them, right?
No, but it doesn't prevent me from maybe having an experience with that person if there's a connection on some level. But it's nice to be upfront. I'm not one of those people who, again, need a relationship, but.
Right, but we're also talking about all the guys out there who are over 50, and a lot of them do need relationships. In fact, there are serial relationship guys.
Oh, yes, definitely.
And here, wait, this is great because this leads into another quote that I have. If you want to date someone who is open to friendship and a possible relationship, find a widower or a divorced guy. Those guys understand what it takes to be in a relationship. Serial single guys walk the moment it gets hard, and I'm not talking about their dicks. I do see that often with a lot of single guys, that the moment something is difficult or I don't like it this way or this is not the way I do it, they leave the budding relationship instead.
Yeah, I think that's definitely more of a personality trait where you avoid emotions. And let's be real, a lot of guys our generation are emotionally immature at times, because of the way we were raised, because of the environment we were raised in, because of a bazillion reasons, but it's not necessarily an excuse to cut and run. But that's how people operate, because it's what allows them to survive and continue with their life. It is what it is.
Yeah, but I do see so many single guys who are like, I want to be in a relationship, but and then they start dating somebody, and that's it. Something happens that they don't like. Instead of working on it or whatever, they're like, yeah, I'm done with that guy and moving on to the
and
next.
that's where emotional maturity comes in, because there's a lot of guys I date who, I sometimes emotionally throw up. It's just the way I am. And it took me a very long time to be able to share what it is I feel. But there are a lot of guys who aren't willing to do that. And again, it's one of those things we have to push past those boundaries that we've created for ourselves when we're dating, to be emotionally vulnerable, to take the risk of getting hurt. And yes, it sucks ass when you get hurt. And again, we single guys know that because we open ourselves up. Somebody kicks us in the nuts. And then we close down again, but this time the door is locked. There's one more deadbolt on the door. So, you know,
Well, being
what?
in a relationship is not that different either. I get hurt all the time,
Yeah,
like we're hurting each other just whatever,
right.
it's life. And although we can't run away, we can't, well, I mean,
Right.
we
You
could.
guys have a foundation that you've
Yeah,
built that's solid. When you're
right,
starting a dating relationship, you're basically on a plot of land that's sand, and you got to figure out how to stabilize that and start to build a structure. And instead of
right,
running away, maybe open yourself up and be a little bit more emotionally available and honest, because ghosting is such a big thing these days, where if you're
yeah,
not clicking with somebody, just say, hey, can we be friends? I really like you, but it's and be open. Don't just stop communicating, because that's
right.
kind of childish, and reminds me of your 16-year-old self, where you cut and run. Right there you go.
So why else do you think a lot of men our age and older are giving up on dating?
Again, I got to go back to the calluses that we've built up around our hearts. It's exhausting. And it's exhausting going out on a date, for the fourth time in a couple of months, and you're starting from ground zero. So, where are you from? What do you do? Blah, blah, blah. It's sort of rinse, repeat kind of thing. So sometimes it's just easier to go, I'm not bothering anymore.
Okay, so that's a negative about going on dates. What other negatives about dating?
Getting hurt, it's a big one for a lot of people. It sucks. Well, I think when guys open themselves up and it doesn't work the way they want it to work, I think anytime you open yourself up to maybe trusting or getting to know somebody, that you become vulnerable.
Right.
And I think the older we get, the more that becomes unattractive. And so I think a lot of guys out there just are done and would rather be alone than take the risk of getting hurt. It makes perfect sense to me. And I think another negative is, again, like we've talked about, you're kind of set in your ways,
Yeah.
right? So maybe if you open the door, there might be something you have to change. Let's say you're a bar person, because there's a lot of them here in Palm Springs, and a lot of guys like to go out. That's their social environment. That would be a consideration you would have to take into, you'd have to hold a place for if somebody's not in that space.
Another guy that I spoke with, when I asked about negatives of dating, like why are you not going dating, and he was saying that so many guys bring their past relationships with them on the date and either talk about them
Yeah.
or compare to them or complain about them.
Yeah, that's a tough one too. And sometimes when you find yourself in the midst of that, you just go, why am I doing this? What is the point? Finish your relationship drama with your other person and then go out on a date. Because again, it's a time suck. Dating is a time suck. And 9 times out of 10, for guys our age, we got other things to do, right? So time is a big concern in that issue as well.
All right, well then, what can guys our age and older do to make dating work for them?
Mm. Here's my suggestion. Figure out what it is you want, right? Not what you need, what you want, because there's a difference. Um, be really clear about that, not only with yourself, but to whomever you might be going out on a date with. That's maybe a first step.
Okay.
And then just take it from there. Leave the expectations at home. Let it be what it's going to be. Let it go where it's going to go. And stop worrying so much about the idea of dating, because that in itself is also one of the negatives, where you put so much stress not only on yourself, but on the other person. Building expectations is not a good thing for dating. And it doesn't have to be anything more than it is in that moment. I just, expectations will kill something before it even has a chance to root. When you guys, way back when you and your husband started dating, you
Yeah.
didn't go into it thinking, oh, I'm going to be married to this man for 35 years, did you?
No, of course not.
Yeah. So, I think it was easier when we were younger to leave the expectations sort of behind us, right? Because we were young, we're carefree. And as we grow older, that gets a little more restrictive.
But also, as we grow older, we are, we know we don't put up with a lot of the bullshit where when you're younger, you do, right?
Yeah,
So,
exactly.
yeah. So, a friend of mine who is single in Palm Springs gave me this quote: God gave you two ears and one mouth for a reason. Listen more than you talk.
You know where he got that quote from? Judge Judy. She
Oh,
says
yeah?
that all the time, and it's true. It's
Okay.
true.
So do you find that is a thing on dates that a lot of people just talk and never listen?
Well, to the person who you spoke to who said, that person who comes into the date and all they do is talk about their past relationship.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a hard one. So I think on a first date, on a second date, on a third date, even with you and your husband, I'm assuming that there are times where one of you has to take a step back and actually use your two ears and know that you have to be quiet in that moment, right?
Right. But we're also the old couple you see at a restaurant who never speak throughout the entire dinner sometimes. Like we can, because we have this great history, we don't
Yeah.
have to speak. And I know I find this with just meeting new friends. Like you just always feel like you have to be talking. You have to keep this thing going.
Right.
The silence kills whatever.
Yeah, that awkward silence, right?
Yeah.
Well, it shouldn't be awkward. It should be a comfortable silence, even if it's with somebody you don't know, hopefully, where it's like, we're having a pause right now and it feels good.
Right.
And then you just resume when the moment's right.
Okay. Um, so what is something else that can can help guys out there make a first date work? Not like, oh yeah, we're gonna be married in 15 years and whatever, but just to have it be a pleasant experience. What is something that can help that happen?
Just take the pressure off of yourself. Be yourself. Be happy with yourself, because I think if you're content and happy with who you are, it reads. Other people see that. And then it makes somebody else maybe a little bit more comfortable, because again, there's a lot of stress on a first date. It's a
Cool.
lot of, you don't want to make a misstep or what. Just take that out of the equation. Be you, let them be them. And if it doesn't click, it doesn't click.
Okay.
But I just really, again, it's not that us single guys need somebody, but
Well,
it's
some
also,
people do. Some
yeah,
people need people.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
But I think everybody needs somebody. But I'm talking about in a clingy way, maybe. It's like, because that reads as well. Somebody who feels a little bit desperate to have a relationship, and they're going to fit you into that slot, even if they have to force it.
Right.
I think a lot of single guys out there totally get what I'm talking about. It's the round peg into the square hole. And you see people maybe trying to force that and
Okay.
haven't taken the time to know you, that it's
Right.
more about the idea of a relationship that is appealing. But on some level, I think we all need somebody. There's no two ways about that. Even if
Oh,
you're
exactly.
married, you need other people in your life. You need
Oh,
friends, you need
totally. Yeah.
family,
I
you
mean,
need that. We're human beings again.
yes.
Um,
You can't be everything to everybody. Okay, so since obviously you've been on one or two dates, you might know this. What can you do to help the other person, to make them feel comfortable, to make it a positive experience for them?
I think owning your responsibility in the date is a big thing, because it
What does
will make
that
them
what does that mean though?
to realize that the other person is probably equally as uncomfortable as you are. So to make it a 50-50 proposition, that all the weight's not on one person, right?
Okay.
Just laugh, tell a stupid joke, to lighten the mood. It's not it's not your final exam for your master's degree. It's a date. Just
Right.
laugh, be present, and stay in the moment for the entire date. Don't wander off someplace. Don't, if you get a phone call or a text, don't answer it. It's going to wait. Nobody's going to die. Be presentable. Show up like it means something for you. Comb your hair, brush your teeth,
Ooh.
wear something nice.
Okay, I got to stop you there. Like, do people actually go on dates without, showering and wearing nice clothes?
I'm gonna share one that it still gives me the willies.
Yeah.
I went on a date. We're in Palm Springs. People wear sandals all year. If you're gonna wear sandals, have presentable feet.
Yeah, that's it.
And that's something that be presentable. So yes,
Right.
people do show up sometimes and look a little disheveled or like they just rolled out of bed. Make
Well,
an effort. It's
that
not
would
that hard.
that would be like the biggest red flag right away. It's like if
Yeah.
I'm not important enough, this first date with me is not important enough for you to brush your teeth, then I think we're done here,
But they more than likely do that in their entire life. They've just become, that's the way they are. So that's how they show up. And
Well,
that's okay.
exactly. And again, we are
Yeah,
done here.
that's okay.
Like,
That's okay. But yeah,
I I don't
get it.
know if I would be able to just be like, oh, that's okay if that's how you are in your real life. No, if you don't brush your teeth, I'm not having a relationship with
Yeah.
you. I'm not going to date you, you know?
But it doesn't mean you have to cut and run. You could be, just have a casual. If it's a coffee date, you don't go, oh, I gotta go because you got janky feet. It just, you stay, you have the
Right.
conversation, but you realize it's not gonna work.
Okay.
So, yeah, call me crazy, but just be presentable and like make an effort. Because I do
Yeah.
think the older we get, the more like, I'm just
Really?
going. I'm not combing my hair.
I won't even go to the grocery store without putting on like three different outfits to, which one looks best.
Oh,
So
bless your heart, because I go to the grocery store sometimes. Just
with your
I,
janky feet and your sandals, I know I've seen you.
the guy I ran into the guy at Ralph's here, music, who runs musical bingo one day, and I just had a long day. I was sweaty. I just looked like 100 miles of really hard road. And I'm carrying this propane tank, and I see somebody across the parking lot, like looking at me. And I didn't recognize him at first because I was in my own head, and I'm just like, oh God, yeah, I know, I look like shit. What can I say? And as he got closer, I was like, oh, hey, Larry. He goes, I was cruising you so hard. I was like, I look like shit. What are you talking about? So in that moment, I went out in public looking like crap and didn't care. So sometimes people carry that on to a date.
Mm,
You
let's
haven't dated in 35 years. You don't know.
I
It's
I
a
don't
jungle.
care. I
It's a
think if you're
jungle out
going on a
there.
date, you said it yourself, put some effort into it.
But I wasn't going on a date. I was returning a
Right.
propane tank. So,
All
but
right.
again, you never know where you're going to meet somebody, right? I
Which
meet
is
people
why I
around.
put on three different outfits before I go to the grocery store. You never know.
Yeah.
I think we need to address all of the gentlemen who are out there who are saying, nope, not going to do it. Don't want to date. I'm done. It's over for me. What can we do to help these guys? What can we do to kind of change this negativity of theirs?
Dating is like walking through a minefield, especially if you've been doing it for a while. So you got to push yourself to sort of maybe try to cross the field and leave some of the baggage behind. But again, that's if you're in a space, in a headspace that you want to date, but are afraid for some reason. Check out those reasons. Hopefully you could work through them, leave some of the baggage behind, cross the minefield, because you never know. You
I
never
think
know.
I think, leave the baggage behind. I also think, and you all might just get really mad at me or whatever, but you've got to own that maybe the reason dating's not working for you, you got to own maybe it's you know?
Yeah, without a doubt. Like I said, it's a 50-50 proposition, right? When you first meet somebody,
Yeah.
you both have to be in the same space, and sometimes that just doesn't happen for whatever reasons.
Well, I'm not saying that about being you just might have too many high expectations. You might just be so bitter. You might just feel like my way is the only
Yeah.
way. You've got to own that maybe the reason why this isn't working out has something to do with you.
Yeah.
We all have to look in to
And
see.
that bitter comment is definitely a big one, I think, for a lot of people to look at, you know, because we do get calloused and we do get hardened. And sometimes you're right. You have to look in the mirror and go, if this is something I want to pursue, a dating life, what's holding me back? Don't worry about the other person. Let them worry about them.
Also, if you're one of those guys who's going on a date with your janky feet and your sandals and, without combing your hair and be like, well, I'm just being me. Like, okay, dude, I think you got to look at yourself there too.
Yeah, you could
Like
be you. You could be you with trimmed toenails, right?
you could be you. And as you said earlier, be presentable. I
Yeah,
think a lot of issues might be stemming on ourselves and quit blaming everybody else because everybody loves to be a
yeah.
victim. I certainly know that. And
And
so
not
maybe the
everybody has to accept you for who you are because there are parts of all of us that might be not a very nice person at times, right?
right.
So you do have to be aware.
Yeah, I think self awareness is
Yeah.
definitely a huge thing, especially if you're trying to find someone to connect with. All right. So I think besides owning that, besides, owning who we are, one of the things that you did say I thought was a really lovely way to think of it. You go into this date, you have to know that they're going into it as well, maybe a little nervous. It's just as difficult for them as it is for you. And I think if you look at it that way, and maybe even say, I don't know if you would ever do this, but just to sit down and go like, I don't know about you, but I'm really nervous. Like, I, this is a lot, and then just whew, that's over, and
Yeah.
then let's move on from
And
that.
then it allows the other person to just take a breath as well, right?
Yeah,
You were honest in that moment, and honestly, that resonates with people. Honesty resonates. So be honest with yourself and be honest with them. It's not a again, this isn't a life or death situation. It's a date.
it's just a date,
It's
but
just the date.
it's a date with expectations usually of like finding someone to connect with. So again, I'm the married guy. I don't get this. I want to hear from you guys out there to really let us know what's happening with you, single guys. How is it for you? How do you meet people? How are you dating? What are dates like for you? Or if you're one of those guys who said, "Nah, I'm done," why? Let us know. Educate us, especially me. So please, Michael, how can they let us know all of this stuff?
You guys can reach us across social media at No Two Gays About It. Just remember, it's the number two, No Two Gays About It. And again, that's across social media. You can find us on YouTube, and you could also find us on Patreon, and check out our show and have a look at what Patreon is and what it does to keep this show running. Join us at a tier or a level that works for you, because we definitely need the support. And if you want to email us personal and don't want it public, you could always send us an email at no two gays about it at gmail.com, and we will get back to you.
And also, as Michael said at the very top of our show, if you are watching us on YouTube, make sure that you hit like and subscribe and that little bell. And one of the things that Michael and I really enjoy is watching you guys comment to each other, which is brilliant. We're trying to build this community of over 50 gay men to continue the discussions that we're starting. So you can do that on YouTube. You definitely can do that over at Patreon. We're also trying to build that. And if you do join us at Patreon, you can be part of our private Facebook group, where you can, again, just talk to each other and try to figure out all of these life questions and issues that we are bringing up for all of you.
Yeah.
So fantastic. And really, we so appreciate all of you that are out there, all of you that are watching and listening and commenting. It's awesome, guys. Thank you so much for all of
Yeah.
the support that you're giving us.
And also for the lack of judgment that you guys extend, not only to us, but other people who are commenting. It's
Right.
kind of awesome to see the support that you guys have for each other.
However,
And this is going to be one of the conversations that probably will, elicit some heavy duty conversation, because
Sure.
dating is personal,
Yeah,
right?
right.
So
Very personal. But I'm fine with any kind of judgment comments if they're directed at Michael. I love reading those. Just not me because I'm too sensitive.
he's such a delicate flower.
I'm very delicate. Very.
Her petals drop like you just can't even witness. It's horrible. Before we go, I want to send a shout out to our Patreon supporters at the executive producer tier for their support and encouragement. And that is Lauren Javier, John Bonasante, Ted Zalewski, Jason Cruz, and Kurt Bremer. Thank you guys for the support. Thank you for believing in us. We greatly appreciate it.
We definitely do. All right, Michael, let's get out of here. You've got to get to a date, I would imagine.
I actually do have a date. We're going on a walk.
Woohoo! Fantastic. All right, well then fill us in next time we're talking. Until next time, Michael.
Until next time, Tom. Thank you guys, and thank you for listening.
Thank you.